Stay with me, and by the end of this journey, you'll understand how a simple, invisible loop in your brain runs your daily life. And more importantly, how you finally take back complete control over it. Have you ever sat alone in a quiet room, watching the clock tick past midnight, feeling a heavy wave of exhaustion, stress, or deep boredom? In that exact moment, a familiar thought whispers in the back of your mind. It offers a promise. It whispers that just a few minutes of escape will wash away the tension, quiet the restlessness, and make everything feel lighter. You tell yourself it is just a harmless distraction. You tell yourself you will stop in 5 minutes. Yet within moments, the routine takes over. You are on autopilot, and when the brief moment of distraction fades, you are left sitting in the exact same quiet room, staring at the screen, feeling a heavy cloud of frustration, regret, and mental fatigue settle over you. You ask yourself the same question every single time. Why did I do that again? Why is it so hard to stop when I know it makes me feel worse afterward? If you have ever asked yourself that, listen closely. You are not weak, you are not broken, and you are certainly not lacking in willpower. What you are experiencing is not a failure of your character. It is simply a deeply ingrained psychological loop operating on autopilot inside your brain. More than a century ago, a pioneer of psychology named William James noticed something fascinating about human behavior. He realized that a massive portion of our daily lives, from the way we walk to the way we react under stress, runs entirely on automatic habits. He understood that once the brain finds a shortcut to deal with discomfort, it locks that path into place so you don't have to waste energy thinking about it. That insight changes everything. It means your habit is not a moral failing. It is a biological script. And once you learn how to read that script, you can rewrite it from the first line to the last. Think about how the loop starts. It rarely begins with the behavior itself. It always begins with a cue. For most people, the cue is never hunger or thirst or even a sudden wave of physical desire. It is an emotional state. It is loneliness after a long day of feeling unseen. It is anxiety about a project, a relationship, or the future. It is sheer, crushing boredom on a Sunday evening when the rest of the world seems quiet. Your brain, trying to protect you from the discomfort of those heavy emotions, looks for the fastest available escape. It remembers a shortcut. It remembers that a specific screen, a specific click, and a specific sequence of images provides an instant flood of chemical relief. It is a shortcut to feeling something, anything, other than the boredom or stress you are currently carrying. And because your brain loves efficiency, it automates the process. The moment you feel stressed, the urge fires. Before your conscious mind even has a chance to step in and ask if this is what you really want, your fingers are already moving. You are pulled into the routine before you even realize you've made a choice. This is why trying to fight the habit with raw willpower alone almost always fails. When you rely only on willpower, you are fighting a biological reflex with a conscious thought. It is like trying to hold back a rushing river with your bare hands. You might succeed for an hour or a day or even a week. But the moment you are tired, stressed, or emotionally drained, your defenses drop and the river rushes right back through. To break free, you have to stop fighting the behavior at the end of the loop and start intercepting it at the very beginning. Let's look at how this mechanism actually functions in your mind. Every time you repeat this cycle, you carve a deeper groove into your neural pathways. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to wire itself based on repeated experiences. Every single time you give in to the cue, the pathway gets wider, faster, and easier to slide down. It becomes a superhighway of desire and instant gratification. When you look at adult content on a screen, your brain receives an artificial, hyper-concentrated burst of dopamine. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure, as most people believe. It is the molecule of anticipation and motivation. It is the chemical that says, "Pay attention, this is important, do it again." Evolution designed dopamine to help us survive, to find food, build shelters, and seek genuine human connection. But modern digital environments hijack this ancient system. They feed your brain a level of intensity and novelty that no human being could ever experience in the real world. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a screen and reality. It only knows the chemical reward. So it adapts. It adjusts its receptors to handle the massive flood of dopamine. And when those receptors become desensitized, everyday life suddenly starts to feel grey, flat, and unexciting. The things that used to bring you natural joy, a good conversation, a walk outside, progress on a personal goal, suddenly feel dull by comparison. This is why you might feel a lingering sense of lethargy or lack of motivation long after the screen is turned off. Your baseline has been altered. You are spending your energetic currency on cheap, artificial thrills, leaving nothing in the tank for the real life you actually want to build. Stay with me, because once you recognize this chemical reality, the power dynamic shifts completely. You stop looking at the habit as a mysterious urge that controls you, and you start seeing it for what it truly is: a predictable, mechanical loop designed by your brain's shortcut system. Let's examine what happens when you try to change this pattern without a strategy. Most people wake up one morning, feel a sudden surge of motivation, and declare, "That's it, I'm never doing this again." They delete their accounts, block sites, and swear off the habit forever. For 3 days, they feel invincible. Then the inevitable happens. A stressful Tuesday arrives. A wave of loneliness hits at midnight. The old emotional cue triggers in the background. Because they haven't replaced the routine, the brain finds itself standing at a dead end with no way to handle the stress. The old pathway is still there, wide and inviting. Within minutes, the streak is broken. And that is where the most dangerous psychological trap of all sets in: the shame cycle. The moment you slip up, a harsh inner critic wakes up. It tells you that you are weak, that you have no self-control, that you failed again, and that you might as well give up because you'll never change. That feeling of shame is heavy. And what does the brain do when it feels heavy, uncomfortable shame? It looks for an escape. It looks for a distraction to numb the painful feelings of guilt. And where does it go? Right back to the exact same habit that caused the shame in the first place. It is a closed, vicious circle. Shame leads to the urge leads to the behavior leads to regret, and regret leads right back to shame. If you want to break free, you have to break this cycle at its foundation. You have to learn how to interrupt the loop the moment the cue appears, long before you ever reach the routine. Let's look closely at how you actually intercept that cue before it turns into an action. The next time you find yourself sitting alone late at night, feeling that familiar wave of restlessness or tension creeping in, I want you to try something entirely different. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or opening a new tab, pause, just for 5 seconds. Do not fight the urge. Do not judge yourself for feeling it. Simply bring your awareness directly to the physical sensation in your body. Where do you feel the tension? Is it a tight knot in your chest? Is it a restless energy in your hands? Is it a heavy, hollow feeling in your stomach? When you name the feeling, something remarkable happens in your brain. Neuroscientists have a phrase for this: name it to tame it. The moment you shift your focus from an abstract, blurry urge to a concrete physical sensation, You activate the prefrontal cortex, the logical, thinking part of your brain. You step out of the automatic emotional loop and back into the driver's seat of your own mind. You look at the feeling and you say to yourself, "Ah, there it is. I'm not actually looking for a screen right now. I'm just lonely. I'm just stressed about tomorrow. I'm just exhausted." By shining the light of conscious awareness on the true trigger, you strip it of its mystery. You realize that the urge was never about the behavior itself. It was always a desperate messenger trying to signal an unmet emotional need. Carl Jung once observed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That is precisely what this habit has been for you, an unconscious program directing your nights while you sat back wondering why you felt so powerless. But the moment you bring that program into the light of day, it loses its invisible grip. Now, once you recognize the cue for what it is, you come to the most critical part of changing any habit, the routine replacement. You cannot simply delete a habit loop from your brain. The neural pathway is already carved, and nature abhors a vacuum. If you try to remove the routine of escape without putting something else in its place, the space left behind will feel unbearable. When a wave of stress or boredom hits, your brain will ruthlessly pull you back toward the old path simply because it is the only tool it knows how to use. You have to give your brain a new way to get what it is actually asking for. If the cue is loneliness, a screen is a fake, hollow substitute that leaves you even more isolated than before. What your mind and body actually need is real connection, or at least a shift in environment that breaks the trance. This means you need to pre-plan your rescue strategy before the urge ever arrives. You don't try to negotiate with yourself at midnight when your willpower is drained. You make the decisions now while your mind is clear and calm. Write down a list of alternative routines that take less than 2 minutes to start. When the urge hits at night, your rule is simple. You must do one of those alternative actions before you allow yourself to even touch your phone or computer. What could those alternatives be? It might be getting out of bed immediately, walking into the kitchen, and drinking a full glass of cold water. It might be stepping out onto your balcony or opening a window to feel the cool night air on your face. It might be putting on a pair of shoes and walking around the block just once. It might be picking up a physical book and reading 3 pages, not because you love reading, but simply because it requires enough focus to break the hypnotic trance of the screen. The goal of these alternatives is not to feel instantly blissful. The goal is simply to interrupt the automatic momentum long enough for the biological spike of the urge to pass. Urges are like ocean waves. Most people think that if they don't give in, the intensity will just keep building forever until they break. But that is not how human biology works. An urge is a wave. It rises, it peaks, and if you simply stay still and let it wash over you without fighting it or feeding it, it breaks and dissolves within 10 to 15 minutes. If you can stay anchored for those 10 minutes, the storm passes. And every single time you ride out that wave without giving in, you weaken the old neural pathway and carve a brand new, stronger one in its place. Stay with me, because as you start changing these patterns, you will notice something else shifting. You will begin to realize how much mental energy you have been leaking every single day. When you stop spending your dopamine reserves on instant digital fixes, your baseline starts to reset. It takes time, often a few weeks of consistency, for your brain's receptor sensitivity to recalibrate. But as it heals, the fog begins to lift. You wake up with a clearer head. The things that used to feel tedious or overwhelming suddenly start to feel manageable again. Your attention span, which felt shattered and fragmented by constant hyperstimulation, slowly knits itself back together. You start noticing the world around you with a new level of sharpness. You realize that you actually have the power to direct your attention wherever you choose, instead of being dragged around by every impulse that flashes across your mind. This is what true self-mastery feels like. It is not the absence of temptation. It is the absolute confidence that even when temptation arrives, you know exactly how to handle it. You are no longer a passenger reacting to whatever trigger pops up in your environment. You are the architect of your own habits. Let's look at how you protect this new freedom moving forward, because building a new habit is only half the battle. The real test is defending your progress when life gets messy. Protecting your progress requires looking honestly at your digital environment. Most people try to rely purely on internal discipline while keeping the battlefield completely rigged against them. They keep their devices right next to their bed. They leave notifications turned on. They keep their accounts logged in, passwords saved, and barriers to entry lowered to zero. That is not discipline. That is setting a trap for yourself and hoping you don't step in it. If you want to stay free, you have to make the bad habit hard to reach and the good habits frictionless. Psychologists call this choice architecture, designing your surroundings so that your environment naturally guides you toward the right decisions, even when you are tired or stressed. Start by auditing your digital space with ruthless honesty. Where do you usually slip up? Is it late at night when your phone is resting on your nightstand? Is it during those quiet hours when you sit at your computer with no restrictions or blocks in place? Change those variables tonight. If your phone is your gateway, establish a strict physical boundary. Buy an old-fashioned alarm clock so your phone has no business being in your bedroom when you sleep. When you finish work or wind down for the evening, place your phone in another room or inside a drawer across the hall. Make it so that if you actually wanted to give in to the old habit, you would have to physically get out of bed, walk across the room, unlock a drawer, and consciously undo 3 different security barriers. That simple physical friction buys your prefrontal cortex enough time to wake up and take control. In the middle of an urge, laziness is actually your best friend. If you make the habit inconvenient, your brain will often decide it is simply too much trouble. On your computer, install robust content blockers or accountability software, not as a sign of weakness, but as a declaration of strength. You are building a fortress around your mind because you value the life you are trying to create more than a temporary, hollow escape. Stay with me, because as you clear out these digital distractions and reclaim your focus, you will start to notice a profound shift in how you relate to other people. For a long time, consuming artificial content quietly warps your expectations of real-world intimacy. It trains the brain to view human beings as objects meant solely for instant gratification, devoid of complexity, history, emotion, or vulnerability. When you consume that content regularly, it bleeds into your real relationships, making real-world connection feel disappointing, demanding, or frustrating, because real people require patience, communication, and mutual effort. When you break free from the loop, that artificial filter starts to dissolve. You begin to look at people not as sources of quick chemical relief, but as complex, fascinating human beings. Your interactions become deeper. Your patience grows. You stop looking for perfection or instant emotional fixes in others because you are finally learning how to provide emotional stability for yourself. This is where your confidence truly begins to rebuild. True confidence does not come from positive thinking or reciting affirmations in front of a mirror. True confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself when no one else is watching. Every single time you feel the old urge rise up, recognize the cue, apply your pause, execute your alternative routine, and successfully ride out the wave. You add a brick to your foundation of self-respect. You look in the mirror and you see someone who can be trusted. You see someone who doesn't fold the moment life gets uncomfortable. And that internal shift changes how you carry yourself in every room you enter. People can feel it. When a person is no longer secretly battling an exhausting, hidden compulsion behind closed doors, their energy changes. Their gaze is steadier. Their focus is sharper. Their presence is grounded. Let's look at what happens when you stumble, because perfection is a myth and setbacks can happen. If you ever slip up, if an old stress pattern catches you off guard and you find yourself falling back into the routine, you must understand how to handle it without destroying everything you've built. Most people treat a single slip-up as a total catastrophe. They tell themselves, "I broke my streak of 30 days, I'm back to zero, I've ruined everything." That all-or-nothing mindset is a trap. If you drop your phone on the floor, you don't pick it up and smash it into 1,000 pieces just because it has a scratch on it. You pick it up, wipe it off, and keep going. Treat a relapse the exact same way. It is not a complete reset of your progress. It is simply data. It is a moment to look back and ask yourself honestly, what was the trigger? What stress or emotion was I trying to escape? How was my environment set up that let my guard down? Answer those questions, adjust your defenses, and get right back on the path immediately. Do not wallow in the heavy quicksand of shame. Shame keeps you looking backward, paralyzed by what you did yesterday. Real growth keeps your eyes forward, focused entirely on who you are becoming today. Stay with me, because as you continue down this path of self-mastery, the cravings will begin to change. They won't disappear overnight, but their texture will shift. They will go from roaring, uncontrollable storms to quiet, distant whispers. You will look at them and realize they no longer have any power over you unless you hand it to them. You are no longer running away from your emotions. You are no longer looking for a screen to numb your loneliness or quiet your stress. You are facing life directly, with a clear mind, a steady focus, and a deep, unshakable ownership over your own mind and body. By the time you finish this journey, you won't just have broken an old habit. You will have built a stronger, more disciplined version of yourself, one who dictates the terms of his own life, protects his own energy, and commands complete control over his destiny. Let's look at what happens when you finally claim total ownership of your energy and direct it towards something real. For years, that old habit acted as a vacuum, quietly sucking up your ambition, your creative drive, and your mental clarity. Every time you needed focus for a difficult project or energy to solve a hard problem in your life, your brain instinctively reached for the easiest escape hatch available. It traded long-term fulfillment for short-term relief, leaving you drained before the day had even truly begun. When you remove that leak, you will experience a massive surplus of unspent energy. At first, that extra energy might feel restless or uncomfortable. You might find yourself pacing around your room or feeling a sudden spike of nervous tension in the evenings. That is entirely normal. Your body is waking up from a long, artificial sleep. The secret is learning how to channel that raw energy into something tangible. Think of this energy like fuel. For a long time, that fuel was being funneled into a dead-end machine that gave you nothing in return. Now, that same fuel is sitting in your tank, waiting to be directed toward your actual goals, your physical health, your business, or your personal growth. When a wave of intense focus or restlessness hits you, do not try to suppress it. Redirect it immediately. Sit down at your desk, and tackle the hardest task you have been putting off. Put on your shoes and push your body through a rigorous physical workout until the excess tension is burned away. Pour that intensity into building something, learning a skill, or solving a real-world problem that moves your life forward. When you start using your drive to conquer difficult things in the real world, your entire identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is constantly fighting a secret internal battle, and you start seeing yourself as a disciplined, purposeful builder of your own life. Stay with me, because as this transformation solidifies, you will realize something profound. Freedom was never about having zero temptation around you. Freedom is knowing that even when temptation is whispering in your ear, you have the clarity, the discipline, and the strength to look right past it and choose your own future instead. You are no longer reacting to life on autopilot. You are awake, you are aware, and you are entirely in control. Let's look at the quiet, permanent shift that happens when you reach this stage of the journey. The old habits don't vanish with a dramatic explosion. They fade away because you simply stop feeding them. The neural pathways that once ran your nights begin to wither away from neglect, while the new pathways, built on awareness, discipline, and real engagement with life, grow thick and strong. You no longer fear the quiet hours of the night. You no longer dread being alone with your own thoughts. When a moment of stress or boredom arrives, it no longer triggers an automatic panic response in your brain. Instead, it serves as a simple reminder, a cue to check in with yourself, to breathe, and to choose a better response. You look back at the version of yourself who sat in that dark room months ago, trapped in a loop of frustration and regret, and you realize how far you have traveled. You didn't do it through a miracle or an overnight burst of luck. You did it by understanding how your mind works, by setting up your environment to protect your energy, by catching the trigger before it became a routine, and by keeping promises to yourself when no one else was watching. That is real power. It is quiet, it is steady, and it belongs entirely to you. As you step forward into your days with this new clarity, remember that the choice is always yours. You are the architect of your habits, the protector of your focus, and the author of your own life. Every single day, you get to decide how you spend your energy, what you feed your mind, and who you are becoming. Carry this awareness with you, and never forget the strength it takes to reclaim your own mind.